A moment of truth. Didn't solve my problem. The next step is to buy a new faucet. So I could have done the other in reverse. I could have turned the water off, replaced the faucet, and then if the faucet still did not run enough water, I could replace the valve. So my next step is to replace the faucet. Okay, here I am at my second home, the Home Depot. I spend a lot of time in here. In fact, because I like walking when it's warm outside, I actually get a backpack, and if the parts aren't that large, I end up walking and putting the parts in my backpack and walking back. Notice 4 inches. It used to be very simple. All bathroom faucets were 4 inches. Now with the newer faucets, notice these are bath faucets. Notice it says bath. This one's 8 inches. So it's very important. I didn't measure mine because I already knew, but when you're talking about inches, what they're talking about is the distance between this point and this point. So the older style bathroom sinks were always 4 inches between this point and this point. But the newer bathrooms basically have a much wider distance. The vanities are just made wider. So you really want to make sure that you're double checking that when you come to buy a faucet. So what they really are, I think they're more like the kitchen faucets, the distance between them, but it's very important. So I don't have to worry because I know mine's an older style and I just have to find what I want. And I know I'm looking for 4 inches and not 8 inches. I'm going to be at Home Depot. I wanted to show you the different styles of valves. This is the style valve that I took off of my my water line. And this is the one that I installed. Now, here's the difference in the two. Okay, this one, in fact, let me get the boxes. Notice what the box says. They both are the same size, 1/2 inch. And then it says nominal compression inlet 3/8 inch. So you've got the 1/2 inch and a 3/8 inch. The only thing that's different are these numbers. I shouldn't say the only thing that's different. Notice this one says multi-turn angle valve and this one says quarter turn angle valve. This is your quarter turn angle valve. And this is the multi-turn. So the distinction between the two is that you've got to turn this many times in order to get it off. This is the old style valve, and you've got to turn this several times in order to either turn it on or shut off the water. The quarter is only exactly what it says. Let's see, can I do it? Here it is. This is in the off position right now. This is now in a quarter position. It only went quarter. This one, you would have had to turn it several times. Just think of the old style faucets. You'd have had to turn it several times. So what I've been doing is replacing all of mine. Whenever I replace a valve, I replace it with a quarter turn because it's a lot easier and a lot quicker to do a quarter turn than it would be to just keep turning until you finally shut it off. I'm gonna start by obviously taking off the old faucet, but with the new faucet, I was hoping I could use the stopper, the drain pipe that's already there, but it's completely different. So what I'm going to do, I don't know whether this is the real problem or not. So since I don't know whether it's the faucet that's creating the problem, I'm not going to put on all these other parts yet because I may have to take this faucet back. And so I'm going to put the faucet on first, which I can do, hook up the water lines, and see whether it works. If the water flows faster. If it doesn't flow any faster, I'm going to put the old one back on and then scratch my head to try to figure out what the problem really is. So again, I'm not going to connect everything. I'm just going to disconnect the water lines from the existing faucet, disconnect the existing faucet, and see what I get from there. Now, the sad news is I've got to get under this small sink in order to loosen up the water lines as well as the connections. Because what's under the sink is the same thing that's here. This has to go through the holes. Remember the holes I showed you when we were in the store. So this twists on to here once it's on the sink. And the existing one has the same thing. So I've got to get under the sink and try to twist the one that's on off. That's going to be my challenge. Now I want to get, okay. So again, before I even start looking at the new faucet, I just wanted to make sure all the parts were here. I've got the instructions. And now I'm going to go underneath and see how to disconnect this, this faucet. So you're not going to get a very good view of what I'm doing under this sink. But again, for one, this line, there's the water line. I've got to disconnect the water line. And then the part that I mentioned to you, I've got to do. So because you're not going to be able to see very well, I'm going to do it without trying to take a picture of what I'm doing. So again, I want to be careful because I may be putting this back on if I can't figure out the problem. In the meantime, I need to clean off this surface of this sink so I can put the new one on, being very careful not to scratch it in case I need to return it. If you recall, when I was in Home Depot, remember I told you there were 3 holes and the distance between these two is the size faucet you need. This is a 4-inch. I just happen to know that even though I didn't measure it. I know it's a 4-inch. Okay, let's get rid of this. I'm actually just going to push it into the sink. And let's clean this off. Okay, this is the easy part. Now the hard part is to hope this works. So the only thing that has to be done, normally you put plumber's putty. If you did not have this is called a plastic gasket, you'd put plumber's putty to prevent water from leaking when it runs onto the sink, on the outer parts of the sink. If you have plumber's putty, it creates a seal so that it doesn't leak. This gasket is supposed to take the place of having to use plumber's putty. So this would go on here and then here. Now what has to happen is, again, I'm going to be underneath the sink, because once I put this on underneath the sink, I've got to screw this until this is tight. But what I want to do, which you normally don't do until after the fact, the water line is going to be connected to this, and there needs to be Teflon tape wrapped around it. Normally I wouldn't put the Teflon tape on until it's in place, but because it's such a tight spot, I'm going to take a chance that by putting the Teflon tape on now and then twisting this on, it won't remove the Teflon tape. If it does, then I'm going to have to be burdened with getting underneath the sink and trying to put it on. But it's a lot easier to do it before I put it on. So I'm going to experiment with doing that. So. And again, it should be put on in the direction that you'll be twisting on the connector. So, it should be like this. It's a pretty wide piece of tape, and I'm trying to get it wide so I can twist it. There we go. Still isn't as wide as I want it. Okay, that's one side. Got to do the same thing for the other side. So you can imagine if this is already in place, how hard this would be to try to wrap this Teflon tape around it underneath the sink. So that's why I'm hoping this will work. And the Teflon tape, this spool is like $1. So if for some reason it doesn't work, so I've got to buy some more. So what? All right. And my hope is when I get under there, I can twist this on without it stripping this Teflon tape. And I think I can. At least I hope I can. All right. Okay, the next step is just want to make sure to get it started before I get underneath here. I may have put too much Teflon tape on the second one. Oh, there it is. Okay. Come on. Okay. Now that scares me, but here it goes. So I'm going to put this on and get underneath and connect these. Okay. Now once you tighten it, you got to make sure that it's straight up here. So far, so good. Now I need to reconnect the water line. And it's that connection that needs the Teflon tape that I put on. And hopefully, I may put a little bit more on just to see what will happen. Turn that off. Okay, I've got the everything connected. The water lines are connected. Now it's just a matter of just turning the water back on, and let's see whether I've solved my problem or not. I'm turning on the water, and now I'll turn it on in the faucet. Much better. There it is. So it was actually the faucet that was malfunctioning, but I'm okay with the fact that I replaced the valve, because I eventually would have replaced the valve anyways, and I couldn't have turned the valve off if there was a problem. So I'm okay with that. Now that I know that it is the faucet, the other parts that came with this faucet, I will now replace. So that's what I'm going to do now is replace the other parts. By the way, it was still a little cheaper to do it the way I did it. The valves, there were two valves. The valves cost $10 each.